Welcome back everybody to yet another episode on the channel. Thank you all for tuning in for today's episode. I'm sure you, like myself, are very excited for early spring fishing to get here, guys. I cannot wait. And of course, outside, we just got a bunch of snow out of nowhere. Just got a bunch of snow. I mean, it's gonna go away because there's a lot of warm weather coming, but it just kind of sucks because I'm just ready for spring. In this boat that I'm on right now, guys, I had to clean it up a little bit. I still have to organize it, and don't worry guys, that video is coming. I know there's a lot of you who really want to see kind of how my boat's organized, but right now I'm kind of, you know, in a halt because my garage is packed and I'm gonna be building a big old storage deal over here to the left coming up here this Friday. But that's not why you guys are here to hear me talk about what I have to do. We're gonna be talking about the Ned Rig. So we're gonna be talking about this guy right here because early spring, guys, this is one of my favorite things to fish is the Ned Rig. We're gonna talk about the setup, the line, the reel, the Ned Rig itself, what size jigs, what plastics I like, basically everything you need to know about fishing a Ned Rig, we're going over in this video today. So if you guys like this type of video, you know, tips, tricks, hunting, fishing, outdoorsy types of stuff, things like that, guys, we do it all here on the channel. So if you haven't already, guys, please subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification so you never miss when we upload a new video. I really appreciate it, guys. It helps the channel out a ton. Well, the Ned Rig, guys. So the first thing, I guess, let's just kind of cover what the Ned Rig is. So it's one of those more finesse type deals. Early spring here in Wisconsin, when the water temp hits around 40 to 45 degrees, I start hammering smallies pretty darn good, and the Ned Rig is my favorite for that. The Ned Rig, it's one of those lures that's going to basically catch you fish. You're gonna catch a lot of fish. You can catch them small, you're gonna catch them big. But the Ned Rig is just a little 1/8 to 16th ounce jig, guys, with a little 3 to 4 inch plastic on there. So there's nothing fancy to it. And basically, when it's on the bottom, it's just on the bottom like so, and it's standing up like this, and you're just popping it or dragging it along the bottom like so. So there's tons of Ned Rig hooks out there. You can get Z-Man ones, you can get Z-Man plastics, which you can see right here are really elasticy, but we'll get into plastics a little bit later. But that is really what the Ned Rig is. A 16th to 1/8 ounce is what I prefer to use. I prefer to go as light as I can. I'll go 16th all day, but occasionally, like last season, I was catching a lot of fish off of 1/8 ounce Ned heads. Now, there's gonna be quite the setup to throw something like this because it is a smaller finesse setup. But early spring is where I think this thing is the best. That's where I've had the best luck out of it. I don't fish a Ned Rig a ton in the summertime. I did a little bit in some situations when the fish were being like really finicky. That's when I tend to throw the Ned Rig. But early spring, late fall, cold water, those fish are lethargic. Those smallmouth, those largemouth bass, especially smallmouth are really firing up in that cold water. And I really feel like the Ned Rig is the perfect presentation for smallies. It's just that 3 to 4 inch little grub. And why this is so good for largemouth is largemouth in cold water, or when they're finicky, they just want to eat something small. So I don't know. The thing's just an absolute beast. I can't say enough about the Ned Rig. Throw this on. What are we gonna throw this in? So if I can get this thing over here without smacking the as we're scraping the ceiling here. All right, so this is my setup right here. I do have a new Ned Rig setup, which is gonna come along with some really cool news for the channel. Some really cool news for the channel, and also I'm gonna be selling some of my rods. So if you guys are interested in that, be on the lookout. But I am gonna be selling some rods. But I do have a new Ned Rig setup coming, but this is the one that I threw last year a ton. Now, this is a 7.3 medium light fast action rod. So it's a spinning setup. You want to get a medium light because when you're throwing a 16th ounce or an 1/8 ounce Ned head, you really need something with a good tip that you can really cast this. If you try to throw this on like a medium, like a 16th ounce to an 1/8 ounce Ned head on a medium rod or a medium heavy rod, it ain't gonna throw. You are not gonna be able to cast this thing very far whatsoever. It's a very finicky light setup. It's almost like a drop shot kind of rig, if you will. What I like about the Ned Rig is a little more simple than a drop shot, but you want a medium light rod. Now, 7.3. I threw it on the 7.3 right here. I think the 7.3 through this Ned head perfect. But if you can, I would suggest going with a little bit longer. 7.4 to 7.6 would be optimal. When you go up a little bit longer on the rod, you get a little bit more leverage on the fish when you set the hook, of course. but you also get a little bit more casting distance. So this thing right here, guys, the 7.3, I could cast pretty darn far. I could actually cast the 16th and 8th ounce pretty darn far, but if you go with like a 7.4 or a 7.6 medium light, you're definitely gonna be able to cast a little bit further. Now, for the reel, I believe that this one is like a 6:3-to-1, or no, this is a 5:1-to-1. This is a 5:1-to-1 gear ratio reel. Now with a Ned Rig, guys, you do not need to be like yanking in that fish super fast. So this is an Abu Garcia, I think it's the Pro Max spinning reel, and I've had no issues with it. Actually really like the reel, but it's a 5:1-to-1. And the reason why I got a 5:1-to-1, guys, is like I said, you're not horsing that fish in. It's not like you're fishing around a bunch of vegetation or anything like that, so you're not like trying to reef that fish out of there. A lot of times I'm throwing this early spring to, you know, late fall, so that's why I'm using you know, something like this where I'm not around like a lot of really thick cover. So a 5:1-to-1 works really well. You could go up to like a 6:3-to-1. I think that's what I ordered for a new reel. It's like a 6:3-to-1. I don't know. When I get it all, I'm gonna unbox. It's gonna be a huge unboxing, by the way, coming up for you guys. Huge when it all gets here. So that is the reel I'm throwing it on. Now for the line. Now this is super important. Don't just spool this up with fluorocarbon, guys. Don't get the Ned Rig and then throw on all fluorocarbon. Now if you're fishing clear water, I would suggest going 10-pound braid. 10-pound braid. And then if you're in those clear water situations, a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. Okay. Now, in that 6-pound fluorocarbon leader is going to obviously, you know, clear water situations be huge. But you want the braid on there. The reason why you want the braid on the Ned Rig is because you're gonna have so much more sensitivity out of this rod. Braid is a lot more sensitive than fluorocarbon, but I really like it, and it also helps out your bank account. Braid is a heck of a lot cheaper than fluorocarbon, so you don't want to spool up a whole entire thing of fluorocarbon if you don't need to. So what I do is I do 10-pound braid. And then I do a, if I'm fishing clear water, which around here we have a lot of dirty water, so a lot of times I don't even switch it up. I just fish the 10-pound braid straight a lot of times. But if I get into that clear water, I go and throw on a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. I actually have some leaders cut already for those situations, but a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader tied to the braid, it's going to be really sensitive. It's going to save you a little bit of money on some fluorocarbon, especially if you're on a budget. Fluorocarbon can get expensive, so, but the sensitivity, you can't beat it. So I would go 10-pound braid for sure with your line. Now, how do we fish this? How do we fish the good old Ned Rig? So a lot of times, guys, basically with the Ned Rig, you're fishing it slow. You're not fishing this fast. There's nothing to it. How I like to explain the Ned Rig to people that have never fished it before is it's almost like a Texas rig in my mind. A Texas rig or a tube, something like that. You're gonna throw this out. You're gonna cast this sucker out there. You don't even have to cast very far at times. Just cast it out there. And then what you're gonna do is just give it some time to sink to the bottom. And once it gets to the bottom, all you're gonna do is reel up your slack a little bit, and you're just gonna drag the bottom. And you should, and with this braid on there, guys, you should be able to feel this this Ned just bumping the bottom. It'll be bumping the bottom. Now, you can either do that, you know, reel up, drag the bottom a little bit, let it sit, drag the bottom a little bit, let it sit, or you can pop it along the bottom. So you can just grab your rod and just kind of flick it a little bit and pop it to you a little bit. Just hop it around the bottom. You can either drag it or hop it. That's typically the two ways that I fish it. Now, when you get a bite with this thing, guys, you're either going to see the line jump, you're gonna feel it in the rod, or you're going to pick up some slack, you're gonna pick the rod tip up, and you're gonna feel that weight of the fish, or you're gonna feel the fish pull back, something like that. When you set the hook on this, you don't have to set to the moon. You're not setting like you're setting a frog or a flipping jig or anything like that. This is a light setup, guys. It's a really sharp hook. It's not a big hook, so it doesn't take a whole lot to set the hook. So a lot of guys I've seen actually just reel down on the fish. I like to set the hook a little bit, and it's just a nice, easy sweeping set. So I don't go straight up with it. I just kind of go I don't know, right over my shoulder with it. Nice sweeping set. I don't go straight to the side or straight up. I just kind of go over the shoulder, and it's not super hard. Once I feel them, I just kind of set and reel up a little bit. I don't set hard. You don't need to set super hard with this. Like I said, it's a very light wire hook. It's not very big. It doesn't take much to get it through there. You don't want to rip it out of its mouth, so you don't want to set extremely hard or break your line for that matter. But the hook set there's not much to it. But like I said, when you feel that bite, you're either going to feel it like a Texas rig where the line jumps, or like you're fishing a tube. You're going to pick up the rod tip and feel the weight of the fish, or you're going to cast out there and they're going to hit it on the drop, things like that. That's basically how you're going to feel these bites. A lot of times the bites that I've noticed with the Ned Rig, especially in the early springtime that's coming up, is a lot of times I just throw it out there, and then when I'm like dragging the bottom, when I go to pick up my rod tip, I usually feel the fish then. I feel the weight. It's kind of squishy. And that's kind of great at fishing early spring, is you can kind of tell if it's a fish or if it's grass in the early spring really well, because early spring there's not a lot of grass around in the Midwest, especially because it hasn't really come up yet. So a lot of times when you feel that kind of, you know, squishy weight, 9 times out of 10 it's a fish in the early season. Something that we got to talk about a little bit before we finish up today is the plastics. Now, there is a lot of different plastics out there. Now, you can either go with Z-Man plastics, which, as you guys can see, these Z-Man plastics are elastic. They're a little more expensive, but the thing that you get with Z-Man plastics is the elastic. And the thing is that a pack of Z-Mans lasts a long time. So, but the only thing that I'll say is Z-Man is not good for is you can actually buy Ned heads that are EWG Ned head hooks. So they're actually extra wide gap Ned head hooks. And what those are good for is if you're fishing around grass or a lot of rocks and your hook keeps getting snagged up on rocks or grass, things like that. The EWGs are weedless, so you can tuck them just like a wide gap hook, an extra wide gap hook. Same thing with the Ned head EWGs. You can do that same thing and make these weedless. Now, I will say that the elastic material on the Z-Man is not the best for EWG hooks. It has the hook, when you go to kind of poke it underneath the plastic here, it doesn't come out of it, because this plastic is so durable and so strong that when you try to poke it underneath there, if you do get it underneath there, a lot of times when you get bit, you go to set the hook and the hook point doesn't come out of the plastic. So if you're going to use EWG hooks for Ned heads, which I actually use a ton, I would suggest using like a Robo Worm. Robo Worm makes a lot of Ned stuff. Or take a green pumpkin Senko, or just take a Senko in general and then cut it down. Either just pinch it off down to like 3-4 inches. You don't have to do anything fancy with it. I have a lot of Gary Yamamoto Senkos, green pumpkin, and I've cut a lot of those down to like 3 to 4 inches and use them for plastics. Now, colors. I really like green pumpkin and black flake for my Ned heads. Ned rigs, guys, I would say 98% of the time I'm using green pumpkin and black flake. Sometimes I'll use a chartreuse colored Ned head. You could play around with the colors, or use orange, one of the two. But green pumpkin with black flake I found is my go-to color. Now, I've used black and blue a little bit. That works well too. I've used green pumpkin with gold and purple flake. That was a really good one actually. But a lot of times if I'm in clear water situations, I might go to a watermelon. But green pumpkin and black flake is my favorite. And my favorite one of all time is the Robo Worm. I actually don't have any yet. I have an order coming in with it's green pumpkin with black flake Robo Worms coming in. That is my favorite Ned head or Ned plastic. It's not elastic, but I don't know why. I just really like the plastic. So that is typically what I use for plastics. So there you guys have it. That is everything about fishing a Ned rig, from the rod to the reel to the line to the Ned heads to be tossing to the plastics to be throwing. If you guys have any questions, things that I didn't answer in this video, leave them down in the comments below. I'll get back to you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.